are we late reacting, or was the draw too early?
Yeah,
You can look at
that's good.
everything from any perspective, really. Hello, welcome to DNQ Football, and today we are reacting to / talking through the AFC Asian Cup draw 2023, but it's actually 2024 because it was due to be played in China. It's been moved to Qatar. We've done a whole video on this. You can check it out if you want. But we're way further on from that, and now we have, as you can see here, the group stages.
Yes.
Overall, Ryan, I'm a big fan of these groups. There's a number of tough matchups, shall we say, for some of the Minnow Nation sides. Let's quickly run through Group A. We have Qatar, now the hosts. They'll be up against China, former hosts, Tajikistan, Lebanon. And the way that this whole group stage thing works is that the top two from each group will go through, joined by 4 of the 6 third place sides. So not that many teams actually go out in the group stages. But this could be one of those groups. Yeah, go on.
No, I was going to say, you've done well, actually. If you exit the tournament at the group stage, you've done pretty well.
You have.
You're in the minority.
The minority, big time, to go out. But that could potentially be the case in this group, because I think you've got 2 quite strong sides and then 2 decent sides. Bit more middle of the road here. I think that Qatar, of course, hosts winners last time out. They'll probably look for at least 7 points in this group. It'll be interesting to see what China can do, but again, a solid footballing side. And then Tajikistan and Lebanon have proved themselves to be beyond minnows, which is why we're only glancing over this group. But I think it'll be tough for them to get points other than against each other. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I like that. I like that assessment of the first group, and yes, that the tournament and your little very brief intro into how the tournament itself works, from groups to knockout phases and so on until the final. My only thing that I'm going to take away from that first group, Group A, is Qatar are obviously hosts, and Qatar just basically host everything now, don't they?
I don't think it's too long before they
just
host the
host
CONCACAF
everything.
Gold Cup. I don't
Yeah,
think
I
it's too
know.
long.
They seem to sponsor and host everything. Yeah, so that's interesting. Yeah, Wimbledon is hosted in Qatar this
But in
year.
the winter, because it's too hot in the summer.
Yes, yeah. Very true, very true. Yeah, Group A. I have nothing to add on that one, my friend. Looks like a cool group. We'll see how it goes. It's weird, isn't it? Because this draw, great. It's quite a long time until the actual tournament still, though, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I think what they've done is they've not really moved around when the draw's going to be, which is fine.
Yeah,
But you got to think how much the tournament's been delayed by. It's due to be kind of around
yeah,
now, really.
yeah,
And there's 2 reasons. One, far too hot in Qatar to host a tournament. Same with the World Cup. But secondly,
yeah.
Qatar, of course, later on in June and into July will be at the CONCACAF Gold Cup themselves. So they wouldn't have been
Yes,
able to play
yes,
in
they
this.
will.
Which is quite interesting, because you think, hold on, if the tournament was going to go ahead in, they wouldn't have been able to do both. Anyway, perhaps that's another talking point. Or maybe
Who
they've
knows?
just got 2 different teams. Who knows
Yeah,
at this point?
they've recruited so many
I
players.
was going to say, yeah, it's not long before they host everything, and summer will be the time for the domestic leagues, because every international tournament has to be played in Qatar in the winter.
Yeah.
Having
So
said
that's Group
that,
A.
having said that, I do think that it will be a fantastic tournament. We've already seen with the Arrow Cup and the World Cup, pulled off pretty well by Qatar. So I'm sure this will be a great tournament. Group B,
Yes.
Australia,
Yep.
Uzbekistan, Syria, and India. Of course, I'm repping the India shirt. I have also got Chetri on the back as well.
Good man.
Potentially, a last AFC Asian Cup for him. Which will be a huge loss for India when he does eventually stop playing in the international scene. How do we feel about Group B as a whole?
Like Group B. Love the complexity of it as a dish. I think the Aussies will. I know we're here and we're going to talk about India, and I'm going to focus on India, but the Aussies won't be best pleased with that draw, I don't think. So they're obviously in pot one, but all of the teams that are in their group are one of the higher than ranked nations in each of the other pots. You've got Uzbekistan, solid outfit. Syria, who are at the top of pot three, and then India at the top of pot four. I mean, I still expect them to go through, but it's just an interesting one because Australia are now ranked with inside the top 30. Again, something I didn't realise until doing some digging pre this call. Like the looks of Group B. Will Chetri still playing for India? Is that a really stupid comment? I'm assuming he probably is still. He hasn't
Well,
retired yet,
I've
has he?
made the assumption that he is. I've seen nothing to the tune of him retiring, but of course we're still six
No,
months
that's
away. I'd be
yeah, that's
surprised if
true.
Chetri stops playing before this tournament, but I think this could
Yeah.
be. I think this could be the last dance, as it were, for Sunil.
Yeah, I mean, look, they've got so many games. It kind of feels weird. I mean, well, I guess we're just reacting to the groups, aren't we? This is not really like a preview. Just thinking about
No,
it now, I
yeah,
know we're
yeah.
just sort of
We'll
talking
do
out
way
because they've got
more towards the end of the
so
year.
many games.
Yeah.
They had the March internationals. They had the March internationals where the Tri Nation series beat Myanmar, beat Kyrgyzstan. They've got an Intercontinental Cup coming up in June, which is also incredible. They've also got the SAF Champs, the Kings Cup. They've got the Merdeka tournament before they even have some friendlies, before they even play this game. They've got Australia up first, and then Uzbekistan, and then Syria's their last game. So it's going to be a tough one for them, I think,
I think this could
to
be a
get.
group where you see one of the teams in third place going through, because I think that Uzbeks and Syria, um, they'll both fancy themselves against India, certainly currently.
Yeah,
It's like you say, it's not an ideal group for the Aussies, but I do have to say I think that all of the strong sides, which in the image that you can see is pretty much at least the top sides, and then a couple of the sides second on the list as well. Um, they're going to come at least third with enough points, aren't they? So it's not an ideal group stage for Australia, but it's probably testing enough that it warms them up for what will actually be a difficult kind of latter stage of the tournament, because there's plenty of good sides. But yeah, I mean the group could even finish in the order that it's currently written. But Syria are a good side as well. But I do think India will struggle, and they may obviously give us an inclination of that across the next few tournaments that they have. But I think a downside for them would be I don't think they play good enough sides on a regular basis to really level up. Group C.
mm,
I mean, there's two interesting sides from my perspective here. First quick one, obviously, it says Hong Kong, China. This isn't our image, so you can say whatever you like about whether you do or don't kind of agree with that. It's fine. Um,
oh yeah, I
Iran
didn't
are a
notice that.
Iran are a very good team, a
Yeah,
very very good team, and UAE are a solid outfit. I think that Palestine will fancy themselves to get out of this group though. I think that they're a good enough side. They're inside the top 100 in terms of rankings. They've proven that they can compete. They didn't have the best kind of Arab Cup, whenever that was last year, but I do think that this will be potentially the most interesting group so far, because I think UAE, Hong Kong, Palestine, I'm really, really interested to see how those teams compete against each other. But Ryan, do you see this one as a bit of a clean sweep for Iran?
yeah, I think so, mate. I think you've called that right. Iran, UAE, and then I think Palestine could sneak through on a third
Mm,
spot in their qualification for Asian Cup. The most recent round played 3-1 and didn't concede a goal. Beat Mongolia, beat Yemen, beat the Philippines 4-0.
yeah.
Um, yeah, not sure on Hong Kong, but I think they've got a tough ask. That's how I see the group going, mate. You've absolutely nailed it. Should we group D it?
Do it and start us off.
Um, Well, we've got Japan, Indonesia, Iraq, and Vietnam. Now, Japan are will be one of the favourites for the tournament as a whole. They're coming into they'll go into it as the highest ranked nation. And also, I think they've been dealt quite a favourable draw with their group. I expect Japan to get 9 points from that. They've got Iraq that will probably cause them a little. That won't be a straightforward one, but Indonesia and Vietnam, I expect for them to swap those two aside. From an Indonesia and Vietnam POV, my amigo, what are we saying?
I, I mean, Vietnam are a very strong side.
Yeah.
They're always getting to the finals of the ASEAN Cups. It's kind of
Hmm.
them and Thailand are normally the best two teams. It's their golden generation. It's their best chance to get out of the group, I'd say. I think that I also think it's a decent chance for Indonesia to get out of the group. I think this is This is another particularly spicy one. I think Iraq will probably be quite pleased with the draw,
Hmm.
because you've got two
Yeah,
sides that they will expect themselves to be able to compete very well with in Indonesia and Vietnam. And if you kind of, and similar with Group C, if you go off the basis that Japan just beat all of them, then it
yeah,
makes it far easier because it's just a shootout between the other three sides. And I think that's where that third place opportunity, might sneak in if either of sides manage to kind of get a draw and a win. You're kind
mm,
of guaranteed at
yeah,
least second slash, if not already through. So I think that will be a really fiercely contested one. I think the matchup that I'm most keen on is Indonesia versus Vietnam, and whether or not Indonesia can, in a single round robin, can get the best of them, because it'll
yeah.
be
I mean,
tough.
they lost, didn't they?
Yeah.
AFF Championship semi-final. Drew the first leg 0-0. Second leg went down 2-0, and then obviously crashed out. Or sorry, AFF. Its full title. Come on, Ryan. AFF Mitsubishi Electric Cup rolls off the tongue. So I mean, will the Indonesians be out seeking revenge for that semi-final defeat? Maybe. I think Vietnam could again pip them to the post though.
Mm.
Actually, thinking about this, we said about it, Qatar hosting. We've just witnessed, or say just, we saw the World Cup in Qatar. It will be really cool to see these games played out in Qatar because those stadiums were bloody fantastic, weren't they? And the facilities and everything was amazing. I'm just thinking, I'm looking at these fixtures and thinking about Indonesia taking on Vietnam, but in those incredible arenas. The same with like India taking on sort of Syria in these in those sort of fantastic facilities. They've set themselves up to have quite a real good sort of sporting arenas for these kind of things. So fair play to him, really. Fair play to him. But yeah,
One,
that's
one
how I
thing
see
I
Group
did
D go,
think
mate.
though, as we were chatting
Well,
through Japan, and we'll touch on it with Korea as well, and indeed, a few of these sides. Does this tournament fall in the FIFA international window? Will players like Mitoma be available for Japan? Will Heung-min Son
I
be
don't know.
available for Korea Republic? It kicks off, mid-January.
It would just be like AFCON though, mate, won't it? Because they'll just go and play. They'll just go and play for their nation, which is exactly the same as what happens when AFCON's on in January. That
Well,
you know that
and indeed
those
will be
players are
on
going to miss
again.
sort of 4, 5, yeah, 4, 5 sort of prem games. So
Yeah.
I imagine that will just be it'll be the case for that, mate.
An interesting thing to factor in when looking at club seasons around that time as well. And that may, of course, impact Tottenham Hotspur, as we look at Group E with Korea Republic, South Korea, Malaysia, Jordan, and Bahrain. Not the best draw for Malaysia. I think that's fair to say. That's a tough group. That's a fiercely
Yeah.
contested group. Bahrain and Jordan are both better than you'd probably think. If you were to ask your average kind of football fan how good those sides are, they're probably a little bit better than that. They've of course had the opportunity to play in Qatar as well as part of the Arab Cup. This is not a good draw for Malaysia, and I think it will be really impressive if they can compete well with sides like Jordan and Bahrain. I don't know who's. I imagine Korea will come
Mm.
top, but I don't know who's going to make up the other two spots there. I'm not saying Malaysia are out of it, but I'm saying that is a really, really tough group.
I mean, what you've got there though, mate, is you do have Jordan and Bahrain are actually very, very close in quality. So
Mm.
if they draw,
Yeah, yeah,
you never know. That might open it up. But no, I'd imagine that Malaysia would probably come. Actually, to be fair, thinking about it, if Jordan and Bahrain then draw and then they both beat Malaysia, it's a high chance that if they both end up on 4 points, that the team that finishes in third is going to go through. Mate, I'd imagine Malaysia will probably exit. That is a tough draw for them, yeah, because they've got a team that's really high up in pot three in Bahrain, and yeah, Jordan are kind of at the bottom of pot two ranked. When it was done, they were FIFA World Ranking 84, so that is at the bottom of what is pot two, but yeah, they've got a tough draw. They've got a tough draw there, pal. South Korea again in the top 30, ranked
yeah,
27.
yeah.
So, and we know some of the quality players that they've got. Tough one for Malaysia, but yeah, it's just the luck of the draw, mate, isn't it? What can you do? What can you
It
say?
is, and it's a similar situation as we move on to Group F. You could argue for Thailand. Thailand, of course, a better side than Malaysia on paper,
Yeah,
but Saudi Arabia,
yeah,
Kyrgyzstan, and Oman. they're all very
Yeah,
good as well.
yeah, they
Um,
are. They are.
I think Saudi Arabia might even fancy themselves to win this whole tournament, to be honest.
After their impressive World Cup
Yeah,
showing,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. God, that didn't they beat Argentina?
they
They did,
did.
didn't they?
They did.
And who then went on to win it? Absolutely
I
incredible.
believe they were the only side to beat Argentina, which is a great
Oh, they
pub
must have. Yeah, they
quiz
would.
fact.
Yeah, they would have been, wouldn't they? Because no one else would. They wouldn't have lost another group game.
No, exactly. So therefore, the only team that beat
Otherwise, they wouldn't have gone.
Argentina was Saudi Arabia,
Yeah,
which was great for the whole. Like the tournament was obviously hosted in Qatar, but there was loads of people from all over the Middle East and North Africa as well. And
yeah.
it was great for that whole area. And
Yeah,
some of
they
the
were kind
scenes
of
were
almost they were
incredible.
sort of supporting each of
Yeah,
the teams from
which I
each
think
of
is
kind of
good.
like their neighbours, as it were, wasn't
Yeah,
there? Yeah, no, and that result. I mean, that result sort of shook the world
it
almost at
did.
the time.
It did.
It was just stunning, absolutely stunning. I mean, yeah, they are. They're one of the nations that's in that pot one. Like I've mentioned the pots here, but it's just based on how they're
Yeah,
ranked.
yeah.
So and I dare say each of those, Saudi Arabia, Australia, South Korea, Iran, Japan, and Qatar, obviously being the host themselves as well, they will be entering the tournament with the mindset to try and win it. Of course they will. For Thailand, it's yeah, what can you say, mate? It's a tough group. It's a tough group. I tell you what we do. We sort of mocked at the start of the tournament how if you come in third, there's a high chance. Four of the six third place teams still go through, which you can sort of mock it, but most of the teams are then going through. But what it does do from we're looking at this from a who are the lowest ranked nations in this tournament. What it does do is there is a chance there. You
Definitely.
never know. And if one of these nations just gets one result, whether it's a draw or whether it's a spawny win, there's a high chance that they're then going to go through to the knockouts, which would be a huge achievement when you look at. I'm looking at this draw now and some of the nations here in comparison to the smaller sides. We can only hope for those minnow nations, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And Thailand themselves, not particularly a minnow nation, but Group
No,
S.
true, true.
No, but generally the point remains, particularly if you're looking at, I'd say, at Group D, Indonesia, Vietnam,
Mm.
two sides that have drawn each other in the group, which is a local derby played away, and should be fantastic. And indeed, all the groups are fantastic. And we will be, in 6 months' time, bringing you a few more previews,
Yeah,
match reviews, and maybe even a watch along as
more
well.
more insight nearer the time, I dare say.
More
This
insight
was
nearer
more
the
of us
time.
sort of reacting.
Absolutely.
Although we're kind of late. We're kind of late to the reaction here, aren't we? Because this was a little while. This was early May, wasn't it?
Are we late reacting, or was the draw too early?
Yeah,
You can look at
that's good.
everything
That.
from any perspective, really. But no, it's
Mm.
it's going to be absolutely fantastic. Cannot wait for this tournament. But unfortunately, we're going to have to because it's a while away. But in the meantime, why not stick around and watch a few more DNQ videos? As
Yeah.
always, we'll see you next time.